haven't checked the weather yet, but I know it is the perfect day to chat about adult Jewish literature. I'm Cheryl Stahl. Thanks for joining me here at Nice Jewish Books. 2 years ago, I had the pleasure of speaking with Jaclyn Goldis about her book, The Main Character, and I am thrilled to welcome her back again to talk about her latest mystery thriller, The Last Time We Saw Her. Welcome, Jaclyn.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I'm so happy to be back with you.
I'm happy also. So please tell me about your book.
So the last time we saw her starts 10 years ago when a teenage summer camper disappears while searching for rumored treasure on a remote island. And now it's 10 years later, and the campers and their counselors from that fateful trip reunite on the island for a memorial service and also to film a documentary about the cold case. And while they're there, old betrayals and secrets ignite, and someone new turns up dead, which means that there is still a murderer on the loose.
It was wonderful. It was definitely a page turner and kept me up way past my bedtime.
I'm so thrilled to hear that, even though I'm sorry that my book lost you sleep.
So one thing I love about your books in general is that they take place in interesting sites. And this one takes place in the Azores Islands, which are about 800 miles off the coast of Portugal. I had to look that up. And there's a historical Jewish presence there on the islands. So can you tell me about the setting and why you chose it?
Yeah, well, I really love weaving Jewish stories and Jewish history into my books. I like writing Jewish characters. That feels meaningful and important to me. And when I was thinking about this book, I'm always led by setting. I live in Tel Aviv, so I've lived abroad for 10 years, and travel is hugely important to me. And it's very fun to pick a setting selfishly that I want to spend time in my imagination in for a good amount of time. So I had written prior to this book all Ashkenazi stories. And so it was in my head that I would love to tell a Sephardic story. And when I was researching places, I found out about the Azores. I had never heard of them to this point, and read about that there was a very fascinating Jewish history, Sephardic history on the islands. In fact, Jews originally fled the Inquisition from Portugal and came to the islands where they might have a better chance of hiding out, kind of. And then also Jews also came from Morocco. They also came in the 1900s, escaping Nazi Germany. So it was a very small community. As far as I know, there are no longer Jewish descendants of those original Jews on the islands. But yes, that inspired this book, and then I took it from there.
Yeah, it was great. I loved learning about that as well. And people tend to forget that when you say Sephardic Jews, that it's not just Spain, but Portugal also, that it was the whole Iberian Peninsula.
Yeah.
And so it starts out in the summer camp in New York, right, that catered to, that was made up of mostly Sephardic families. And then they sent kids every year on kind of a camping/heritage trip to the Azores, which started the whole thing of the one girl disappearing, presumed dead, but her body wasn't found. So another characteristic of your book is switching back and forth between all the characters' perspectives. And as you mentioned, they all have secrets, they all have old resentments, and it's a challenge to the reader to figure out, does this secret actually relate to the mystery at hand? So you have lots of different things going on. Does this puzzle piece actually belong to this puzzle? So I'm wondering how you keep everyone's secrets and their life from 10 years ago and their current lives all sorted out.
I love that question because I admit it's difficult. Sometimes I feel that writing a novel and plotting it especially gives me the sensation of my brain being so busy that I had when I was studying for the law school entrance exams for the logic game section. I just remember it was the same kind of puzzled feeling where you're just like, my brain is too full. Yes, I have that a lot. But yes, I do find it really fun writing the alternate perspectives, and that's been that unreliable narrator for the kind of multicast crew has been fun to write.
Right. So not just one unreliable narrator, we have six or eight unreliable narrators.
Exactly.
So one source of tension among the returning people is kind of a class tension because many of them are from wealthy families in New York, but a few are quote unquote scholarship kids who actually live or grew up on the island. So, can you talk about that?
I think that first of all, it's accurate. It feels like it reflects the accurate dynamics that go on sometimes at summer camps, at school. And it obviously creates tension as a dynamic, which as a thriller author, I'm always looking for. So I think it just naturally, um, added to the secrets and added to the motives and it felt right for the plot.
So, another, I don't know if it's really a tension, is one of the characters, Jules, was one of the original counselors, and she's the one who's making the documentary. Now, usually the person making the documentary is removed from the topic, but here she's right in the middle of it. How did you handle, kind of keeping both roles for her?
Yeah, that was difficult because I had to have her spearhead it as part of the plot. It made sense for her character to really need this documentary to succeed. She was at a desperate place in life. And also, for personal reasons too, wanting certain dynamics to come out. I gave her a sidekick, someone who is working for her and more the, quote unquote impartial bystander, although let's see if that actually is accurate. Um, but yeah, I felt that it worked, even though, right, query, would a documentary proceed in this way? I'm not sure, but I took maybe, some liberties.
um, you had a couple really fascinating things about Jewish life on the island, and I don't know. I'm curious if these are true or if these are part of your products of your imagination. You have one story that the the crypto Jews, the original Jews who had fled from Spain and Portugal, had tables with hidden drawers. So if they were eating kosher food and then someone showed up at the door, they could hide it really quickly. But was that a real thing?
Yeah, it was. I love that you're asking about that. Actually, it was a really difficult book to research because typically I talk to a lot of people, I would want to talk to the Jewish community there, but it really doesn't exist. And when I went to the museum on the island, there's this actually beautiful museum where they restored the synagogue and they have all these mementos from Jewish life there, but there's only a security guard, who's not Jewish, who's only speaking Portuguese at the entrance. It's not helpful for me. So anyway, as I said, there's really no Jewish community left on the islands, but I did put calls out to different Facebook groups and using certain Jewish networks I have. And so I spoke to a few people who were so helpful. And that story in particular came from someone. So it was not a story about Jews on the Azores Islands. Is a story of Portuguese Jews, though, I think from Lisbon. So it was true. And I did speak to a woman who is Jewish who lives on the island now. I don't know if there's anyone even else who's Jewish living on the island now, but she's not a descendant of the original Jews. So, but yes, that story is true.
I thought that was cool. And another one, which turns out to be a really important piece of the puzzle, is that one of the characters has a bracelet with a cross and then a dozen swords on it. And this was supposedly a sign of, again, the crypto Jews. It had the cross to, you know, show that, oh, yeah, we're Christian, but there's other symbolism there. Can you talk about that one?
Yes, that was also true. That I think I read somewhere, so I'm not sure if it was specifically a characteristic of Jews on the Azores Islands or if it was Portuguese Jews, but I do know that it almost felt like like they found these ways to keep their religion and their heritage, even in the face of, obstacles and fear. And it was, yeah, it was very inspiring to hear these kinds of stories. I mean, we're in a different place in the world and society now, but it's not, there's some similarities and parallels. So, I'm going to Paris in a few weeks, and I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, can I wear my chai on the streets? I'm not sure. I think I'm going to take it off. And that felt so sad. It still feels very sad to me and weird, but I'm going by myself. And so, yeah, I think I'll feel safer without it. So I could see like having a bracelet, with your own private wink to yourself of I'm still me, and I still own my heritage and my religion, even if you're not allowed to.
I think we need to design a new secret emblem.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I'm with you. Wow. I mean, it's really sad, but yeah, it's what the world is right now.
So, I don't know if that's a good segue or not, but I'd like to talk about grief for a minute. So, the girl who went missing was actually the sister of one of the other campers. So, Olivia. And she says, and I realize I'm not only mourning Sydney still 10 years later, I'm also mourning the person I used to be, the people we all used to be before she was gone. So, can you reflect on that?
Yeah. Wow, I really actually remember where I was when I wrote those lines, and that it just felt so true. And, while thankfully I've never lost anyone in that way, or I think, lucky to say never anyone that close to me. Um, but I do feel that grief changes who we are in a certain way. We don't have that person, the way we used to relate to that person is a part of ourselves. And I think that in this case, I've thought a lot about, missing persons, and how just that not knowing what happened to someone, and what your mind fills in, the blanks, how horrible that would be. I remember when I was just after college, there was a girl who went missing from Indiana University, Lauren Spear. And maybe we all have these missing person cases that we're kind of fixated on, but I remember I was fixated on that one, and I just kept trying to read news, and she was never found even to this day. And yeah, just thinking about what her sister and her parents have gone through, um, with the not knowing and the hope, and then the dashed, and then, I can imagine it changes. Yeah, you're never the same person after that.
I remember after I've had family members die that it seems like you see them on street corners and through windows,
Yes.
and, it's just someone who has, some vague similarity.
Wow, I was just, the closest person I've ever lost to me was my grandfather, who I was really just so close with. And it was, over 15 years now. And I just earlier thought of him and I teared up. It's like it really is, yeah, there's things that change who you are, I think.
Trying to think, of course, since it's summer camp and teenagers, there was some romance and romantic complications on the island. Can you talk about 10 years ago and current?
Yeah, well, first of all, I went to a lot of camps growing up. And I was a counselor at camp, and I went on as part of my Jewish camp in Michigan, Tamarack. They have this hiking wilderness trip for 5 weeks out west in like Colorado and Idaho. And anyway, it was so amazing. So it was very similar to the camping trip I put the kids through in this book, in terms of we camped out every night, we cooked all our own food. And yeah, I think there was just something so, and I also, went on certain heritage trips to explore my own Jewish history. So to Poland, London, Israel. And anyway, it was kind of a mashup of that. But I do think that being far from home in an exotic place, it lends itself to romance very easily. Certainly was my experience as a camper on these trips. And there's drama and romance, and someone's with someone for a few days, and then a few days later, it's very easy to get with someone else. And so yeah, it brought me back. And anyway, it was ripe for the tension and the drama I need as a murder mystery writer. But it also felt very true to what these camps are, at least insofar as the romance, not the murder.
So you also have some complications with their extended family, that the father of one of the campers ended up marrying the mother of one of the other campers. So they're into this kind of forced family situation.
Yes. Yes, I won't give any spoilers away, but I did have an idea at the beginning that, kind of set the plot in motion, or was one of the things that set the plot in motion. And I think that, I know people growing up who, parents got divorced and then you're all in the same kind of community. And so remarriages happen and kind of clump, stepkids together who might, so now they're step siblings and they might not love that. So that that felt like a fun and realistic place for more drama and more secrets.
So it sounds like you did a lot of research for this. Was there anything in your research that surprised you?
Yeah, I forget if I put it in the book, but in the late 90s, there was I think a group of Azorean school children were on a hike and they discovered a Torahs in a cave and some
Whoa!
yeah, and some, I don't know if it was Hebrew writing on the walls or Yiddish writing. I don't know. Anyway, but I guess Jews hid that was like somehow they practiced their Judaism in this hidden space. And yeah, that felt very I was really wowed by it and felt very like meaningful and emotional to hear that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And the Azores are, volcanic islands and lots of caves
Yeah.
and nooks and
Oh,
crannies.
and I want to add one other thing that surprised me was that, they've done these genetic studies. So I think the figure is between 6 and 7% of Portuguese people have Jewish DNA. But the number is, I think, closer to 14% on the Azores Islands. So really there was a really sizable, Jewish part of the community that's, I mean, no longer there, but it was sizable.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I wonder if there are still some hidden traditions that people have forgotten why they do them.
There are, exactly.
I know I've heard, in the
Yeah.
Mexican community that there are families who still close the curtains to light the candles and, don't know that it's because 5, 10 generations back they were hiding from Inquisition.
Yes, there's a lot of that. I know certain like burial death practices are similar, and I think also like Shabbat, certain things that they don't associate with Shabbat, but that are Shabbat practices, like even lighting candles they might do on Friday nights and not know why. So yes.
So, yeah, I was going to ask if there are any interesting things that didn't make it into the book, but you mentioned the Torah scrolls. So, are those at the museum now?
I don't know. I guess I think so because I think I do remember seeing Torah scrolls. So I would assume, well, actually, I don't know where those came from, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I know that it was a big because it's a lot of Azorians who left the Azores moved to the Boston, like Massachusetts area. So that's where the campers originate. And I know now in the Boston, Massachusetts area, like that's where they, raised money and funded this synagogue restoration that became the museum. So it's actually a beautiful place to visit. I highly recommend going to the Azores in general, but definitely the museum was worth it.
Sorry, I'm thinking travel. It's like, what's the weather like in the Azores?
Yeah. It's actually really, I don't know if you've been to Hawaii, but it reminded me of Hawaii a bit. It's very green and lush and that kind of I think it's moderate all year round. It's very like 60s, maybe 50s a bit in the winter, but I don't think it gets much colder than
Huh.
50s to 70s, I think year round. It's nice.
Because it's fairly far north. Um, sort of on the line between
Yes.
Portugal and New York.
Yeah, that might be right. Weirdly, I thought the water was going to be really cold because I was there in August even, but it wasn't crazy hot or anything. But actually, the water was very warm, so that was interesting. Something about the not very warm, but it was much warmer than I expected, and something about I don't know. I don't want to speak about ocean things as if I know. I want to say the Gulf. I want to say the Gulf Stream, but it's definitely not the Gulf Stream, so I don't know what it is.
Okay, I didn't mean to veer off into travelogue, but yeah, I'll add that to my bucket list of places to visit.
Yeah, yeah.
So, is there anything you'd like to talk about in the book that I haven't thought to ask you?
One of the most fun parts of the book was the treasure hunt aspect for me because I grew up reading, Treasure Island, of course, but then these treasure hunt stories in certain Nancy Drew books and Hardy Boys. And I think, going to camp too, just the treasure hunt and lost gold and, that's just is such a enticing, exotic kind of thing for me. I've always, wanted to incorporate it in some way. And so how it ended up merging into this book that there was, a note indicating lost treasure from this very, wealthy Jewish family that kind of owned a lot of the industry on the islands, which by the way, that was based off of a real family, a real Jewish family, the Ben Sauds, who did own start most of the industry on the island, and like the orange trade, they had the first airline that later was nationalized, banking. So anyway, so merging kind of the treasure hunt with loosely inspired, by real Jewish history on the island, that was very fun.
Yeah, and that was something that the original campers 10 years ago were really, really intrigued by.
Yes, exactly. And, could have been a motive for the murder. So it played definitely a big role in the plot. And also, the first chapter, I don't think, not giving anything away by saying that there's the rhyme, we're going on a treasure hunt, X marks the spot. And I really remember saying that as a camper, and we would do the motions on each other's backs, and that was very fun to bring into it.
Yeah, that was funny because that rhyme kept catching my ear because I knew a similar one, but different. So I guess they're different versions of it.
Oh yeah, there's different versions of it. Totally. Yes.
And you have Portuguese sprinkled throughout the book. How's your Portuguese?
Oh wow, it's non-existent. Non-existent. I just do my best to become a little dangerous in the language for every book. I mean, every book requires a different language because I tend to set them in different places. And so, thankfully Google Translate has now come to, help me. So I'm not pouring through a dictionary.
So, do you have any projects in the works that you would like to mention?
So I do have, a couple things right now, but I can't really talk about them. Yeah, but I am very excited, and I hopefully will have news to share soon.
Awesome. All right. So, if you would like to put out a call for Tikkun Olam, for repairing the world, what would it be?
I love that. You know what? There was the earthquake in Venezuela earlier, I guess almost a week ago, and my sister is a humanitarian, and so she's working on the humanitarian response, and so I know a lot from her, and it's affected the Jewish community greatly. I think 200 members of the Jewish community are displaced. They're staying at their version of like the Jewish Community Center, and I think at least five are dead and maybe more, some missing. And anyway, I think it's a beautiful cause. I just donated. My 9-year-old nephew donated from his own funds, which I thought was so sweet. I think it's a worthy cause to support right now.
That's wonderful. I can add it to the show notes. If someone would like to contact you, what is the best way?
So I'm at Jaclyn Goldis on Instagram. That's my best place on social media. And I'm jaclyngoldis.com. You can find links to purchase all my books. They're, available everywhere books are sold.
Great. And Jaclyn is Jaclyn.
Yes.
One of the many spellings.
Yes,
All
exactly.
right. Great. Well, Jaclyn Goldis, thank you so much for taking time to speak about the last time we saw her.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Thanks for having me back. This was such a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Me too. If you are interested in any of the books we discussed today, you can find them at your favorite Board and Brick or online bookstore or at your local library. Thanks to Dianki for use of his Freilich, which definitely makes me happy. This podcast is a project of the Association of Jewish Libraries, and you can find more about it at www.jewishlibraries.org/nicejewishbooks. I would like to thank AJL and my podcast mentor, Heidi Rabinowitz. Keep listening for the promo for her latest episode.
Hi, this is Hannah Reynolds. I'm the author of A Practical Guide to Dating a Demon. I'll be joining you soon on the Book of Life podcast. I'd like to dedicate this episode to my grandmother. She is from Paris, and much of this book is inspired by France. She really passed along her love of France to me, so I thought it would be nice to dedicate the episode to her.
The Book of Life is the sister podcast of Nice Jewish Books. I'm your host, Heidi Rabinowitz, and I podcast about Jewish Kidlit. Join me to hear my June 2026 conversation with Hannah Reynolds, author of A Practical Guide to Dating a Demon, at bookoflifepodcast.substack.com.